My name's Nonee Walsh. I live in Thirroul in New South Wales in Australia. I always think we're a bit of a jack of all trades, and I've certainly worked across a lot of different topics. I was environment reporter for a long time. In fact, the first environment reporter the ABC had in the 80s and into the 90s. 1990s, that is. And I've done health, I've done the environment reporting led into science reporting, but I also did a lot of legal reporting. But you know, there's not many topics I haven't tackled really. I've been reading a novel recently set in Australia, and it reminded me of the terrible time that we had in country towns in South Australia where I grew up. My father was a school teacher and he taught in small country towns, and he ended up being opposed by this group called the League of Rights. It was my first experience of media because in the end he actually challenged the leader of this right-wing group to a debate in the town hall. And it was quite an incredible scene. I must have only been about 14 or something like that. Anyway, I was allowed to go along, and there's this scene where every policeman in the district was there, all 6 of them, and the mayor hosted the meeting, and my father was a professional debater, and so he thought the rules of debating would apply, but no such thing. No one was going to dare to mark this debate. There was this incredible sort of tension in the room, and you could tell there was like one side and the other. So I guess it was the first time that I had actually been at an event and seen how the journalists kind of viewed it. So I suppose growing up in that environment and hearing those discussions had a lot to me just drifting towards journalism, starting, with the high school newspaper, then the university newspaper, and then community radio. Once I was in the ABC, I think I really got into legal reporting. And I think I was really lucky because I was at a time of journalism where there was a higher number of journalists. And so when you covered a court case, you actually went to the court case every day and listened to everything. So I loved it. It was kind of like, oh, cool, I'm being paid to do this, just listen to these fascinating, brilliant people, as many lawyers are.
Thinking to myself, goodness, the train's going incredibly fast. And I looked around, and other passengers in the train were also just had that sort of alarmed look on their face. And I started thinking it's going to come off, and then we seemed to either come past a bend or go into a bend, and then the next thing there was this crash.
The passengers, we were just talking to each other and going, oh, I suppose someone will get us out soon. And a couple of the guys were trying to kick out a window, which they eventually did. And a young boy climbed out of the train, and he would have seen all the bodies out there. And he climbed up a cliff because he couldn't get mobile reception, and then got accused by the ambulance people of making a fraudulent call. So very, very traumatic for him. Because somebody started teasing me and going, ha ha, you're a journalist, are you? Yeah, biggest story, and you haven't even got a phone, And I'm going, oh, this is a bit embarrassing. There was a guy up the top of the carriage who was a bit of a computer nerd, and he realised that you could get phone reception by holding the phone above your head, and I asked to borrow his phone, and so I got the phone, and somebody in the journalists in the newsroom passed me to the lines room, which in those days was where you filed your stories to. And I got this young guy in the lines room, and he said, Nonee, I can't take this phone call because I've got a news bulletin to do. And of course I went, you idiot, I am the story, and pulled the phone down and lost the reception. I saw this woman who was sort of sitting there, and she'd been crying, and she'd obviously just finished making a phone call. She was sitting on the lap, and I asked to borrow her phone. And that was how I finally got the report out. And then my very close friend Michelle was on the other end in Sydney, and I actually asked to speak to her because I was a bit out of it, I guess. And I'd been trying to write a story, and I couldn't, just because it had I in it all the time, and you don't do that in journalism. And Michelle just, Nonee, stop it. I'll just interview, all right? And so that's really how the story happened, and that's why it was a joint award, because she was the one who put the journalist brain onto it. It's not the skill you necessarily want to be recognised for, I suppose. And I also felt afterwards too that I was the face of the crash, and I wasn't someone who faced an enormous loss, and my injuries were not life-threatening. you know, people say journalists get cynical, but I mean, I think you get hardened because you just hear so many awful stories all the time, and you're in a constant state of nervousness of, did I get that wrong? Will that hurt somebody? That sort of thing. So you get a bit hardened, and it's lovely to be reminded that, the people you're dealing with are very, very human. You've got to be curious about things. You've got to have a level of curiosity that says, I want to know what this is and why this is. And if you can get your teeth into the what and the why, you can tell effective stories, and stories that matter, because you've got a really good understanding of how things work. So maintain the curiosity, but on the other hand, the key part of that is listening. You've got to listen to how other people understand and tell you their story. Maintain the curiosity, ask questions, and you'll tell relevant stories.